Alright, welcome everyone to another episode of our Pokemon Emerald playthrough. So in the previous episode we lost to May in the rival battle. So what this is going to be covering is all of my grinding. So I'm going to just spend a whole bunch of time grinding up Kadabra because I feel like that's my best way to go through with tackling what May has to offer, and then potentially using Aaron as well if necessary. So it's not an issue for me if I white out because I do still benefit from it. So the way I look at it is you still get EXP from losing. So I think a lot of people tend to do like the Elite Four over and over and over again, even though like you do lose a bit of money in the process. So yeah, I'll probably continue to, well, hopefully not as often, but yeah, to white out from time to time if I do come up against a challenging battle. And then in the meantime, that just means I have to grind a little bit more. So I'll try to avoid grinding heaps because I don't want to be overkilling everyone either. I do want a bit of a challenge with each gym battle. Obviously with Pokemon games there's only one set difficulty, so you can only make it as difficult for yourself as you go along, and you can either make it difficult by setting challenges for yourself or just going along with the game's normal progression. So that means like if you just battle the trainers that are along the route, and sometimes just training in the grass, if you just need to get, like if you've gained a new Pokemon and you just want to get a few levels on it before going into the next gym, I think that's alright. But yeah, if you just over level everything, then it probably gets quite boring. So the mobs around here aren't too bad. Obviously I'm one-shotting quite a lot with Kadabra, with Confusion, and using the EXP share just to benefit another Pokemon at the same time. So while that goes on, there's another bit of information I want to talk about with Sword and Shield, something that I find quite interesting. And then I've also found an article which touches again on the third DLC, which is rumoured, which there's nothing come from Game Freak about it, but people keep speculating about what could potentially come for it. And I find it quite interesting in terms of what they've talked about, and something I didn't actually realise to do with the Kalos region that I'll chat about now. So the Crown Tundra has been announced that it is being released later this month, so I believe it's on the 22nd or 23rd of October, and they released a sort of direct on what everything's being covered with the DLC, and it looks quite interesting in terms of all the different, the way the legendaries are being factored in, and I don't think there's going to be that long of a storyline. I think it's going to be quite, my feeling is it's going to be quite similar to what the Isle of Armor was all about, except instead of doing the whole dojo thing, obviously it'd be the dungeons with the legendaries. It'll be interesting to see how hard they are to catch in the Dynamax battles and how tough they'll actually be. So I'm looking forward to playing through that when it comes out later in the month. I probably won't do any gameplay of it. I'll stick to doing what I'm doing now, but I plan on doing a full playthrough of Pokemon Sword or Pokemon Shield with the DLCs included. So I've already played through Sword and Shield I think 3 times now, just experiencing it with each of the different starters. But what I'd like to do is have a fresh start where I go from beginning to end, including the DLCs in there. So I think you can use, at least with the Isle of Armor, I think you can go in there at any point because the monsters levels, or the Pokemon levels are sort of matched to your own, and it doesn't make it like incredibly hard. I've only experienced it from the end game point of view, so I'd be interested to see what it's like tackling it from the other way around, and then I could probably grab something to join into my party from that area. So I'm tossing up whether I want to do any challenges involved with that game or anything like that. But yeah, that'll be something that I'll look to do once everything's out and I'm done with this playthrough and the Platinum playthrough. So that'll be quite interesting. So what I wanted to touch on as well, so there is a third DLC rumoured that involves the location from Pokemon X and Y, the Kalos region. And what this article touches on is from Game Rant again, but they're sort of just delving into the idea of what if it was part of the DLC for Sword and Shield and what it might involve and the problems that it might come across. So I haven't played Pokemon X or Y in probably, well, since the year that they got released, and it's something where I think I only played it once. I bought Pokemon Y, I played it from start to finish, and then I never touched it again. So I think it was from memory, it was one of the games where it was, I was just like, oh yeah, it's, you know, it was alright. It didn't really blow me away, so I didn't really stick around to enjoy it that much after that, because I think I was playing a few other games like Maple and Grand Theft Auto Online and that sort of thing. But what I didn't realize that they talk about, so they point out a very important thing. So obviously Gigantamaxing only came in Sword and Shield, so it didn't exist before this current generation. And Mega Evolution was a thing back with Pokemon X and Y, but apparently the Kalos starters don't have the ability to Mega Evolve. So this was something that actually surprised me, because I remember, because you do get the, spoilers for anyone who hasn't played it, but you've had plenty of years to try and get it done. But Pokemon X and Y, you actually get 2 starters, so you get the Kalos specific ones. So yeah, the main ones there, you know, obviously the fire, water, and grass. And yeah, it's where you get paired up with a Generation 1 Pokemon as well. So yeah, you pretty much get, it's a nice throwback. They're always doing nice throwbacks to Kanto. But yeah, so that one had the ability to Mega Evolve, similar to what it does in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. But supposedly the Kalos ones didn't, so that's a very interesting point. I don't really see why they're saying it's that much of an issue, but I'll talk. I'll quote the article specifically just to show what they're saying. So as Chestnut, Delphox, and Greninja aren't available in Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield, they do not have Gigantamax forms. Additionally, although Mega Evolution was added in Pokemon X and Y, the Kalos starters do not have the ability to Mega Evolve. This makes them much less appealing than the 6 starters already existing in Pokemon Sword and Shield. And that's obviously the 3 from Kanto, so Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle, and then you've got Grookey, Scorbunny, and Sobble. So all of them have the ability to, well, they've all got Gigantamax forms nowadays, and then it just goes on to say, is it possible that the Kalos starters will get special forms if Sword and Shield were to add Kalos back in as DLC, but this itself would present an issue? Would they be Dynamax or Mega Evolution, and would this set a precedent? So I don't really see why it matters. What my gut feeling would be, like the moment that I read that statement, I was like, well, it would be Dynamax, hands down. Why would you go back and have to worry about Mega Evolution when nothing in the current generation can Mega Evolve, because they've moved on from that into something, in my opinion, which is a much cooler way of having something to be the finale of a battle if you use it that way. So if you haven't played through Sword and Shield, you can just sort of mute for about 30 seconds when I talk about what the Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing is. But most of the gym battles tend to involve a Dynamax form at the end, so you'd always try and time it with that, so then you could probably counter it, or you could stall and waste their time and then do it yourself, so you could have some strategy involved in it. I didn't think Mega Evolution was that great. I used it again when I played through Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu. So I played through Let's Go Pikachu just the other day. I got up to and beat the Elite Four. I just need to go through and complete the Pokedex. I only Mega Evolved my Blastoise once or twice, just because I thought it looked cool, but it didn't really do anything for me. Whereas there's a big difference between Mega Evolution and Gigantamax. So I think it would just be best to go through and just go with what's now, give them Gigantamax forms, and move on with it. So that is, even if this DLC has happened, there is nothing else to really point to it other than the fact that France and the United Kingdom are very close to each other, so therefore it would be the neighbouring continent. But other than that, I can't really see how it could even be a thing. It's an interesting article to read through, and I love reading speculation and getting slightly excited for stuff that might come, because if it means that I pick up my Switch and play more of Pokemon Sword and Shield with having to pay for a little bit more of DLC, sure, I'm happy with that. It keeps me playing a game that I've bought. But yeah, so then they go through in the article like how you would go about obtaining the starters, because I think one of the criticisms of the DLC at the moment is that you pretty much have your main team already set up, and that anything that you might come across in the Isle of Armor you may not add in. So depending on, if you're really hanging out for something that they're releasing specifically that you can add in. I know I did that once or twice with, can't put my finger on it what I actually added in, but there was something. Oh yeah, well I factored in like a a Blastoise into my team, so then I could have a Gigantamax form Blastoise, because I think that looks really cool. So yeah, they go on to say, the start of Pokemon of any Pokemon game marks the beginning of the player's adventure in the game. However, if Kalos were to be released in a DLC expansion, players would likely have their party from the main game of Sword and Shield, as well as from the DLC entries already formed. This would make the obtaining of one of those Pokemon a little less special. So I think you kind of go through that same thing with when you get given either Bulbasaur or Squirtle, spoiler again, sorry, in the Isle of Armor. So that's something that you just get given along the line. You get Charmander in the main game anyway, but yeah, it's something where I can't really see it as being an issue. I feel like they're just raising something just to, to have an issue out of an issue, where yeah, it might be something where you get given it and you can either choose to include it in your team or not. The way that I did it with when I played through the expansion on Shield and then Sword, I pretty much grabbed one Squirtle and one Bulbasaur just to have a different playthrough with both of them. So then I factored both of them into my team. I ended up keeping Squirtle longer in the main team that I've got running across both games. But yeah, I can't really see it being that much of an issue. I'd probably make time for one of the starters, fitting it into the team, including it in the run that I do, and then just leaving it at that. If it were a longer run through, which they're sort of suggesting in terms of, they go on to hint that maybe one of the things that the game could do is lock out your main team and have you create a whole new team to go through Kalos. I can't really see that happening because I think people would really riot about having that sort of thing done to them. But it is a cool thing to consider. It's like, what I'd like to do in one of the challenges maybe in the future is have a different team for every gym leader that I come across. So then why wouldn't you do the same thing for the DLC? So why wouldn't you have a slightly different team for Isle of Armor, slightly different team for the Crown Tundra, slightly different team for the the speculated third DLC. So it could be a fun thing to do, but yeah, I really can't see it being a major issue that would stop them from doing this sort of thing. I'm not really 100% sold, like I was saying, as to whether they would do a third one. I'll eat my words later if I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem to fit into the way that they've really rolled it out, because it's coming up to next month being when Sword and Shield is a year old, and instead of releasing a whole new version, they've done the DLC. So at the announcement of the Crown Tundra, they announced that they'll be releasing the full version of the game now with the DLC included on shelves, so that you don't have to worry about buying it separately. You can just buy the game and it'll have everything on it. So it's a very clever practice that they've put in there. I think it's annoyingly smart of them to do it, because they really should have seen it coming, where they just re-release it with the DLC on it. And I know that other games do that, and that's all fine and whatever. But yeah, it's almost... It's exactly a year on from when they first released the game, so yeah, that's funny that they've done it. And they haven't even really come up with a fancy name for it or anything. They're just saying that it's just got the DLC on it. So I can't see them, doing a third DLC since they're releasing the game with just the 2 bits of DLC on it, because ideally, theoretically then they'd have to release another version of the game, and it just doesn't add up to me. It seems very strange. So yeah, guys, so we finished May here and moving on towards Watson's gym. So I think, just doing that little bit of training, it made it a little bit easier. Just those extra levels sort of gave us a bit of a boost. So it wasn't that hard of a battle there. But yeah, so now we're up into Morvile City. I think that's how you pronounce it. But yeah, it's completely different to what it is in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. And I didn't realize that when I was playing through Omega Ruby the first time around, and then I heard someone mention it in a podcast that I was listening to where they were doing a playthrough of the game as well, and I was like, well, what are they talking about? I don't remember what it was, but yeah, so I forgot that it was just a standard town. It wasn't a shopping mall setup like it is in Omega Ruby. I think it's a very cool town in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. It's not too bad here. There's nothing special about it. So what I plan on doing now is we'll go up and we'll battle through all the trainers in the gym, and then have a go at Watson, and then go from there. So going back to the article, it's Yeah, I don't know. I think it's all speculation. I'd put this on the side of more saying that it's not going to happen than anything else, because it just seems like too much content to put into a DLC. Like, again, it'll be great if they could do it, and hopefully they wouldn't slap a massive price tag on it. But yeah, it's where I just can't imagine them doing something like that. I'd love to see them have a game where there's more than one continent that you can go to, where there's a whole bunch of gym leaders that you can go and face in a different place, similar to what they did in Gold and Silver. But yeah, it's something I just can't see it, which is a shame, because yeah, it's bad that I'm being a bit skeptical and cynical about it, where, you know, I just can't see them adding in that all that extra content for, well, what was the DLC? It was $45, $40. I can't see them doing it again, because people already complained about it the first time. Though I enjoyed it. I've said it before, like, I enjoyed Isle of Armor, and I'm sure I'll enjoy the Crown Tundra. I'm not sure how long I'll play it for, but I'll certainly fit it in with everything else that I'm going through playing at the moment. I was just playing Mario 64 just before, trying to get a few more stars, because I find that I'm having to time manage a bit more, and I just pretty much set myself a goal of getting 5 stars per playthrough that I do. So I think I'm up to about 48 stars at the moment, and I was trying to find my last 2 just to get up to 50, and I got too fed up with it because I was just doing some of the harder parts of some of the 15 odd worlds. So just doing the last star in like 1 or 2 of them, and I just kept failing. It's difficult to get the hang of. Just with like, the graphics are fine, I don't really care about that, but it's just more I think the camera is the thing that really throws me off. So yeah, it'd be interesting to play it on a Nintendo 64 controller again, to see if it's more sensitive on the Switch or if it's more sensitive on one of those controllers, because I just feel like just playing it on a Switch Lite, I just feel like it's very, very sensitive, and just like the slightest bump on one of the joysticks just makes him fall off or just go on a completely different line to what he's doing. And I know with the analog stick on the Nintendo 64 controller, I installed a new one on my favorite controller, because I packed it away in a box and it broke. So then I ordered a third-party replacement stick and screwed it in, and it's super, super sensitive now. It's almost impossible to use. But I thought it was fun taking the controller apart and seeing. It's almost like looking in behind the curtain of something you used when you were a kid, and just seeing how surprisingly simple the controller looked, because it's obviously it's just a switchboard with a whole bunch of wires and stuff going different places. But yeah, I haven't looked inside of a Pro controller or like a PlayStation 4 controller, because I just don't want to mess around with that sort of thing, because I don't have a broken one that I can experiment with. But yeah, I just felt a bit surprised at how basic the 64 controller looked. And they really do need to come out with one that you can buy and use on the Switch. That'd really top it off. So I'm sure if they come out with Nintendo 64 games for the Nintendo Switch Online store, they'll have a membership thing where you can order in one of them, and I'll probably do it. And then hopefully they do that for GameCube games if they ever bring out GameCube or Nintendo 64 games. But I feel like that's another area where I'm a bit cynical about it. But I feel like it's been too long now where I feel like they would have brought out those Nintendo 64 games and all of that beforehand. So right here, just going through grinding a bit more. Like I said, pretty much my aim is just to go through and like battle some of the trainers in the nearby area. I don't think I'll have to do it later on in the game. I think there's enough of the storyline where you come up against the bad guys and you battle them enough where you do get enough training in. But yeah, it's been a while since I played one of these games, so maybe I might be wrong. I might have to do this all the way through. But yeah, so let me know if there's anything you'd like to see me do a little bit different, like if it's too quick or anything like that in terms of the playback that I've got going. Yeah, so then the last little bit that the article touches on is the fact that you can't get anything other than the Kanto starters in Sword and Shield at the moment, since anything from Gen 2 and above up until Sword and Shield you can't get. with the limited Pokedex, which is available in Sword and Shield. So then they're saying that if the Kalos starters were added to Sword and Shield via the Kalos DLC, this would leave many of the other starters in an odd place. None of the other regions in Pokemon have popular rumors involving appearing in DLC, but not adding them would make the Kalos starters stick out a little. I do find it a bit surprising because I was hoping that that would be something that you see in the Crown Tundra, where they made it a little bit more special for the Kanto starters again in the Isle of Armor, where you get them as a secondary starter. But I would have liked to see them, since they are adding in all the legendaries from all the other games in a very action-packed Crown Tundra DLC, which, yeah, it's going to be fun just going through catching all of them. I think I'll really get a kick out of that. I'm not sure if I'll factor any of them into my team. I was a big fan of like the dog trio in Gen 2, but I don't know if I'm really that big on them anymore. I might still be an Entei fan, but the other two, I'm not sure. Yeah, so then it's a bit of a shame to see that like Typhlosion and Feraligatr and I guess Meganium as well aren't making an appearance. It'd be cool just to see them even just running around in the wild or something like that, where there's just something that you can catch. But then again, they've gone for the limited Pokedex, and it has its benefits and its negatives. I've certainly enjoyed having the smaller Pokedex because it makes it feel more achievable. Because I have considered going back through and like I'll complete the Pokedex in Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee, because it's only 151. But yeah, just if you look at anything else, maybe if they came out with like remakes of Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4, I might go through and actually sit there and try and complete the Pokedex. I'm not sure what it is, but there's something, the draw of the way it is on the Switch just makes it feel a bit more comfortable with me. I'm not sure if it's like the fact that I still use the Switch in handheld. Like I'd say pretty much 100% of my playtime on the Switch is in handheld mode, and that's because I'm using a Switch Lite, but then I've also got a normal Switch that my girlfriend uses, and like she always plays it in handheld mode as well. So it's almost just like I prefer the feeling of the Switch compared to, while I love the 3DS and I love the Game Boy Advance when I was growing up, I just feel like I can't spend that much time on them without, it's either like I just get a really bad headache, or just maybe it's just the two screens that really throw me off. But yeah, if they were to come out with remakes, I might sit down and try and complete the Pokedexes. But yeah, just it felt very rewarding doing it on the Switch. But yeah, I just can't bring myself to do it on the 3DS. Maybe because it's old tech now, if that's even an excuse. I can't. I'm not really sure if it's an excuse or not. So yeah. So here we are taking on Watson. So this is the battle with Magneton. Obviously, I'm living a little bit dangerously here, using a water type against an electric type. But yeah, it's one of those situations again where my three main guys are out of it, so it's not looking great. But yeah, again, it is what it is. It's nice to have tough fights to start off with. I'm probably not picking my team to the best of my ability, and not having like a fully trained up team. I will by the end, at least 5 or 6. I might have one filler. I like having the full 6 regardless, because it means you can just sub them in and do something in terms of either, taking a hit from someone else for something you don't want to face. But yeah, so we white out this time, but that's alright, because it just means that we can go through and do a little bit more training, and yeah, it's not too bad. We'll just work on. We'll go up, this way, and just I think I just did a little bit of exploring in terms of just coming across more trainers, and then I'll do a bit more grinding in the grass, but that shouldn't be too bad. So then just going back to what the Game Rant article touches on, it's something where, is it that big of a deal that the other starters, and I know everyone's probably got their favorite starter from different gens, and I don't want to annoy anyone by saying you shouldn't have your favorite starter in the game, but I sort of look at it and it's this, even with like the legendaries, I don't think I'm going to care about that many of them. There's the select ones that I do care about, like in this game, for example. Like I love Groudon and Kyogre and Rayquaza, because I think they speak the most to me in terms of what I remember of the older games. Like I touched on, I think, speaking in my last playthrough, where like I remember most of Gen 3 out of all the Pokemon games that I've done. And like I still remember a lot of Gen 2, to be fair, but yeah, in terms of first time playing through, I really remember Ruby and Sapphire the most out of it. So yeah, like I will go for those sorts of ones, but I probably won't really care about some of the later gens, like even the ones in Diamond and Pearl. I don't really care much about them. So I'll catch them, I'll store them away, but I probably won't use them. In terms of what I'd even use them for, I am looking forward to other parts of Crown Tundra, actually, that there will be, like, I think there's new battle modes and different things you can try out. So, and it looked like Marnie had a new outfit, I'm not sure, but yeah, they've just given her a cool looking outfit. I feel like I'd like to have her as my teammate on a few different things, but yeah, I look forward to trying that sort of thing out. So like the double battle, yeah, the teammates, it'll be interesting to see how that works. So yeah, just seeing how to go teaming up with her against different combinations. Like, would you build your team around similar to what her team is, or would you just do your own thing and just hope that your combination sort of works together? It's an interesting thing to consider, and it's nice that they're bringing in new concepts. So obviously it'd be great if they brought in like another battle tower or something similar to what's in those older games that a lot of people miss in terms of the old game content, but I think they're testing the water. They're trying out newer things, and it's nice, as frustrating as it is, where they don't stick to one real solid idea from game to game in terms of like the quirks that they bring in. Like obviously they keep like the sole concept of it being, you know, like the gym battles and all of that, other than with Sun and Moon. But it's a shame that they don't carry on some of the quirks from one game to the next and sort of pack them in together and have them sort of bounce off each other. But yeah, again, it's a little bit of it's fresh to have something like a new gimmick and see whether you prefer it to the older gimmicks or anything like that. Because I know that Mega Evolution and like the Z crystals from Sun and Moon, yeah, they just didn't do it for me. Whereas like I really enjoy Dynamaxing, and it really just gives it a whole new excitement in terms of being able to see things in different forms in the dens. So like even when you, I think I've got all the ones in terms of the Gigantamax in form. So like they've got different Pokemon that have different Gigantamax forms in Sword and Shield. So it's nice to go through and like, yeah, you've caught the main version of it, but then have you got one that can Gigantamax in terms of having that special form. So it creates a little bit of a challenge to go out there and battle that one and then catch it before the DLC got released. That's the only way you could really do it, whereas after the DLC got released, you've got the ability to use the Max Mushrooms to give the Gigantamax ability to anything, which I think is good because I had one or two shiny Pokemon that I wanted to give that to, and I didn't really feel like going through and trying my hand at getting a shiny Gigantamax version. So it's very good that they added that part into it too. But yeah, so it's a nice gimmick, and I'll be a bit sad if they change it in the next generation, whatever they choose to do. But it'd even be cool just to see it sort of pop up in like another generation, just say like they do like a remake of either like Gen 2 or Gen 4 or whatever you think they'll come out with this time next year. But to carry on that thing, just to make it look like it was either carried into a new area from what they've discovered in the current world or the current content, and then carried that sort of tech over that power ability into a different place, and then you're able to do it again there, and then there's different Pokemon this time around that are able to Gigantamax. I think that'd be really, really cool. But I guess we'll only have to wait and see what they announce and then build up to next year. So yeah, we've gotten a few more levels here from training, so we'll come up against Watson again fairly soon. But yeah, so I think one of the main reasons why I'm questioning whether this Kalos DLC update will happen is if they start to come into like the sort of setting where they're coming out with something new every, what is it? So it's the first year anniversary of Sword and Shield, so then they'll be capping that off with 2 bits of DLC, which points to if they're going off their yearly release date, then they'll probably come out with something new every 2 years then. So then they'll come out with something new hopefully next November, so not next month, but next year, 2021. And then will they add more DLC onto that again? Or will they come out with more DLC for Sword and Shield next year, and then it increases the likelihood of something new coming out, where it's not every year or every 2 years, where it's just really dragging it out. I'm sure some people would like that, but then it comes down to the quality of the content that they put out. So if it's worthwhile looking into it, where you buy a game and it's not the completed package for at least 2 years, it might be the way that gaming's going. If you look at how Animal Crossing released their Halloween update just recently, and they're going to keep building on that. So while they did have a decent enough product to release on the shelf, they continue to add more building blocks to it. With the Pokemon game, would people be happy with that? I know that they'd be happier if Game Freak spent a little bit longer working on each version, but would that equal the DLC? I can't really say, because you're spending more money on a $60 game than you normally would, in the past. So in Australia, I think I bought because the games are a bit more expensive. So Sword and Shield were, I think I got one for $70 and one for $80, because I got one through Amazon, and then I got one through EB Games, which is our version of GameStop, which was fine because I wanted the steel cases for both. So then I paid a little bit more to get the other, because I couldn't find anything locally. I think it was Amazon that I bought one through, and it was slightly more expensive. So going back to my point about it, so spending that much money and then $45, which is what it was Australian, on 2 lots of DLC is $90 altogether. So effectively that's close to between $250 and $300 on one version of a game. So I can't see them continuously building priced DLC one on top of the other. It comes down to what they announce for the next game that they're coming out, whether they're doing a remake next, and then the next generation will be after that. But it's all up in the air, especially with the pandemic this year. I know that's pushed a lot of things out with what they're wanting to do. Obviously, they're linking Pokemon Go to Pokemon Home soon. I'm not much of a Pokemon Go player, but I will get a little bit involved to get the special release of Meltan that they're coming out with. I think that'll be a cool thing to have in Sword and Shield, so I'll definitely link my Pokemon Home to my Pokemon Go account, and at least find something to transfer over, because honestly I think I downloaded it and I was going to play it recently, and then I was like, in terms of finding the time just to spend on that with everything else that I'm doing, I couldn't really see it. So we're going fairly well with our battle here with Watson. I think I'm using my tactics a little bit better, and the paralysis is helpful. So I think the AI is funny in this, how you're using a water type and they could easily take you out with an electric move, and we're both paralyzed. So let me know what your thoughts are, guys, in regards to this article. Again, I'll post the link in the description down below. It's something where I'm really starting on. I don't think this is going to happen with the third DLC. I could be wrong, it's not something I can see how it would really work, because I think they'd set a precedent, and it would be something that's expected for games going forward, and then maybe it's a better model for them. Maybe they'll make more money from it. Let me know what your thoughts are. Thank you for watching. I'll be out with another video in a week's time, and we'll go through and explore more of this region. See you later.